Antarctica, the frozen continent at the southernmost point of the Earth, is often covered in mystery. With its vast, icy landscapes and extreme conditions, it's a place that few have ever had the chance to explore. Despite its beauty, Antarctica remains largely off-limits to the general public. But why is this so? What makes this frozen land so restricted? Today, we're going to tell you why exploring Antarctica is not just difficult, it's nearly impossible for most people. So, let's dive in. Extreme weather conditions. Antarctica is a land of extreme weather, known for being the coldest, windiest, and driest place on Earth. Temperatures during the winter months can drop below -80 degrees Celsius or -112 degrees Fahrenheit, making it an incredibly harsh environment. The winds in Antarctica are also incredibly powerful, sometimes reaching speeds of up to 200 miles per hour. This combination of cold and wind creates a dangerous situation where frostbite can occur in just minutes, and without proper gear, hypothermia is almost inevitable. The air in Antarctica is so dry that it's considered one of the largest deserts on the planet, despite the presence of so much ice. This dryness, paired with the cold, causes the body to lose moisture quickly, leading to severe dehydration if not carefully managed. Surviving in these conditions requires special training, equipment, and knowledge. Even with advanced technology and preparation, the weather in Antarctica can be unpredictable and deadly. The continent's extreme conditions make it nearly impossible for humans to live or even explore without significant risk. This is one reason why Antarctica remains largely uninhabited and untouched by human activity. The hostile environment acts as a natural barrier, limiting human presence to a few highly trained scientists who conduct research under strict guidelines. These conditions ensure that Antarctica remains one of the most pristine and least disturbed places on Earth, with nature firmly in control. Exploring Antarctica without proper preparation and respect for its dangers can be a fatal mistake, making it one of the most challenging places on the planet. Preservation of ecosystems. The ecosystem of Antarctica is one of the most delicate and unique on Earth. The continent is home to a variety of species that have adapted to survive in this harsh environment, including penguins, seals, and different types of algae. However, this ecosystem is extremely vulnerable to human activities. Even the smallest disruption, such as introducing non-native species or pollutants, can have devastating effects on the local wildlife and the environment. Because of this, the Antarctic Treaty and the Protocol on Environmental Protection enforce strict regulations to protect the continent's fragile ecosystem. Before any exploration or activity is allowed in Antarctica, it must undergo a thorough environmental impact assessment. This ensures that the activity will not harm the delicate balance of the ecosystem. Even seemingly minor actions, like leaving behind food scraps or introducing bacteria from other parts of the world, can cause significant harm to the Antarctic environment. The preservation of this unique ecosystem is a top priority, which is why unrestricted exploration is not permitted. The goal is to keep Antarctica as untouched as possible, preserving its natural state for future generations and for ongoing scientific research. By maintaining these strict protections, the international community aims to ensure that the pristine environment of Antarctica remains undisturbed, allowing the continent to continue to be a valuable resource for scientific study and a home for its native species. Limited rescue capabilities. Antarctica's remote location and extreme weather make it one of the most dangerous places on Earth, particularly when it comes to search and rescue operations. The continent is far removed from major population centers, with no permanent hospitals, roads, or reliable communication networks. In the event of an emergency, getting help to the area is not only difficult but often nearly impossible. The isolation of Antarctica means that rescue teams would face enormous challenges just reaching the location of an incident, let alone conducting a successful rescue operation. The lack of infrastructure, combined with the harsh and unpredictable weather, makes even well-planned expeditions risky. Minor accidents can quickly escalate into life-threatening situations in such an unforgiving environment. This is one of the main reasons why only those with extensive training and experience are allowed to enter Antarctica, and even they must exercise extreme caution. The potential for disaster in Antarctica is very high, and with limited rescue capabilities, the consequences of an emergency can be dire. The risk is so great that casual exploration of the continent is strongly discouraged and in most cases prohibited. This ensures that only those who are fully prepared and equipped to handle the challenges of Antarctica are allowed to venture into its remote and dangerous landscape. minimizing the need for rescue operations that are often difficult, if not impossible, to carry out. Scientific research priority. Antarctica is a continent rich in scientific knowledge, offering unique insights into a wide range of fields, including climate change, glaciology, and biology. The Antarctic Treaty designates the continent as a scientific preserve, meaning that scientific research takes priority over all other activities. This designation ensures that any exploration or human activity in Antarctica does not interfere with ongoing scientific studies. Researchers from around the world travel to Antarctica to study its unique environment, which provides valuable data that helps us understand global phenomena such as rising sea levels, the effects of climate change, and the behavior of wildlife in extreme conditions. Unregulated exploration could disrupt these important studies, potentially introducing variables that could alter results or damage sensitive research sites. For example, ice cores extracted from the Antarctic ice sheets contain climate data that dates back hundreds of thousands of years. If these cores were contaminated, it could compromise the accuracy of the data, hindering our understanding of the Earth's climate history. To protect the integrity of this research, access to Antarctica is tightly controlled, with strict regulations in place to ensure that scientific studies are not disturbed. By prioritizing research, the international community ensures that Antarctica remains a place of discovery and knowledge, rather than one of exploitation. This approach allows scientists to continue their important work in understanding our planet, while also preserving the continent's unique environment for future generations. Protection of endangered species. Antarctica is home to a number of species that are found nowhere else on Earth, many of which are considered vulnerable or endangered. These include the iconic emperor penguins, Weddell seals, and various species of albatross. Human activity poses a significant threat to these animals, as disturbances can lead to disrupted breeding patterns, habitat destruction, and the introduction of diseases. The Antarctic Treaty and its associated protocols include strict measures to protect these species, limiting human access to critical habitats and regulating activities that could harm the wildlife. For instance, the treaty mandates that all waste generated by human activity in Antarctica must be removed from the continent to prevent pollution. This includes everything from food scraps to human waste, all of which could have devastating effects on the local wildlife if not properly managed. Additionally, strict guidelines are in place to prevent the introduction of non-native species, which could outcompete or harm the native species that have evolved to survive in Antarctica's harsh environment. The protection of endangered species is a key reason why exploration of Antarctica is so heavily restricted. The goal is to ensure that these unique animals continue to thrive in their natural habitat, free from the threats posed by human interference. By maintaining these protections, the international community aims to preserve the unique biodiversity of Antarctica, allowing it to remain a sanctuary for its native species. The Antarctic Treaty System. The Antarctic Treaty System is one of the main reasons why you can't just visit Antarctica like any other place. This treaty was signed in 1959 by 12 countries, including the United States and the Soviet Union, during a time when the Cold War was at its height. The treaty was an important agreement because it ensured that Antarctica would be used for peaceful purposes only, with a focus on scientific research rather than military activity or territorial claims. No country is allowed to claim any part of Antarctica as its own, making the continent a unique international zone where the primary goal is cooperation in science. The treaty also prohibits any military activity, nuclear tests, or the disposal of radioactive waste. Only people who are part of scientific missions or have a valid research purpose can go to Antarctica. This helps to keep the continent's environment as untouched as possible, free from human interference and political conflicts. Over time, more countries have joined the treaty, and it now includes over 50 member nations, all working together to preserve the peace and scientific value of Antarctica. Environmental protection. Antarctica may seem like a vast empty place, but it is actually a delicate and unique environment with ecosystems that are unlike any other on Earth. The Protocol on Environmental Protection to the Antarctic Treaty, also known as the Madrid Protocol, was established in 1991 and came into effect in 1998. This protocol was put in place to protect Antarctica's environment by designating the continent as a natural reserve devoted to peace and science. It bans any activity related to mineral resources except for scientific research, which means no mining or drilling is allowed. All human activities in Antarctica, whether by tourists or scientists, must undergo a thorough environmental impact assessment to ensure that they do not harm the ecosystem. The Madrid Protocol is one of the most comprehensive environmental protection agreements in the world. It covers everything from waste management to the protection of native species. The strict regulations mean that only a small number of people can visit Antarctica each year, and those who do must follow strict rules to minimize their impact on the environment. Risk of contaminating pristine ice cores. Ice cores from Antarctica are incredibly valuable for scientists because they hold a record of Earth's climate history. These cores are long cylinders of ice that are drilled out from deep within the ice sheet, and they contain air bubbles and particles that have been trapped in the ice for hundreds of thousands of years. By studying these ice cores, scientists can learn about past temperatures, greenhouse gas levels, and even ancient volcanic eruptions. However, these samples are very sensitive and can be easily contaminated by modern pollutants or human activities. If contaminated, the data from the ice cores could become unreliable, which would hinder our understanding of climate change and other important scientific questions. Because of this, access to areas where ice cores are collected is highly restricted. Only scientists with specific research goals are allowed to work in these areas, and they must take great care to avoid any contamination. This careful management helps to ensure that the ice cores remain pristine, allowing scientists to gather accurate data about the Earth's climate history. Regulated access to preserved wilderness. Antarctica is one of the last places on Earth that remains largely untouched by human activity. To protect this natural wilderness, access to Antarctica is very carefully controlled. Each year, only a limited number of people are allowed to visit the continent, and they must follow strict guidelines to minimize their environmental impact. This applies to both tourists and scientists. Tourists, for example, must follow strict rules about where they can go and what they can do, and they are often accompanied by guides who ensure that they do not disturb the wildlife or environment. Scientific expeditions are also limited in size and duration, and they must be carefully planned to ensure that they do not damage the environment. These regulations are designed to keep Antarctica as wild and pristine as possible so that future generations will still be able to study and appreciate this unique part of the world. The careful management of human activity in Antarctica helps to preserve the continent's natural beauty. Banned mineral extraction. Antarctica is thought to have significant mineral resources, including coal, iron, and possibly even oil and gas. However, the Antarctic Treaty prohibits any form of mining or resource extraction to protect the continent's environment. This ban is important because mining activities could cause severe environmental damage, such as oil spills, habitat destruction, and pollution. Moreover, the presence of valuable resources could lead to international disputes, as countries might compete for access to these resources. By banning mineral extraction, the treaty ensures that Antarctica remains dedicated to peace and science, free from the conflicts and environmental degradation that resource exploitation could bring. This prohibition on mining is a key reason why access to Antarctica is so tightly controlled. It helps to maintain the continent's environment and prevents the exploitation of its natural resources. This ban is supported by the Madrid Protocol, which further strengthens the protection of Antarctica's environment by designating the entire continent as a natural reserve where mining is permanently banned. Ice shelf instability. Antarctica's ice shelves are among the largest in the world, forming vast floating platforms of ice that extend from the land into the sea. Although these ice shelves may seem stable, they are far from it. The reality is that they can collapse suddenly, breaking into massive icebergs that can pose significant risks to anyone nearby. This instability is mainly due to the warming climate, which is causing the ice to melt more rapidly than ever before. As the ice melts, it weakens the structure of the ice shelves, increasing the likelihood that they will fracture and break apart. For those who venture into these areas, the danger is immense. The unpredictable nature of these ice formations means that even the most experienced explorers could find themselves in life-threatening situations if the ice suddenly gives way beneath them. This inherent instability is why access to these regions is so tightly controlled. Only individuals with extensive experience and the proper equipment are permitted to approach, and even then, extreme caution is required. The potential for sudden and catastrophic collapse makes these ice shelves one of Antarctica's most hazardous environments. Preservation of historical sites. Antarctica is not just a frozen wilderness, it also holds great historical significance. Scattered across the continent are remnants of early exploration, including the huts and shelters used by legendary explorers such as Ernest Shackleton and Robert Falcon Scott. Additionally, early research stations that played a crucial role in advancing our understanding of Antarctica are also preserved here. These sites offer a valuable glimpse into the harsh conditions faced by the first explorers who dared to venture into this extreme environment. To ensure these historical landmarks remain intact for future generations, they are protected under the Antarctic Treaty. This agreement strictly controls access to these sites, limiting it to only a select few who are granted permission to visit. Those who do visit must adhere to strict guidelines to minimize their impact, as any damage could lead to the loss of priceless historical information. Preserving these sites is essential for their historical value and shows the spirit of exploration that first brought people to Antarctica. Strict waste management policies. Antarctica is one of the most unspoiled environments on Earth, and maintaining its pristine condition is a top priority. The continent is governed by some of the strictest environmental regulations in the world, with waste management being a key focus. Any waste produced in Antarctica, whether by research stations or tourist expeditions, must be carefully managed and removed from the continent. This includes everything from food waste to human waste. The reason for such stringent policies is clear. Antarctica's ecosystem is incredibly delicate, and even small amounts of pollution can have lasting impacts. The cold temperatures mean that waste does not decompose as it would in other climates, allowing it to persist for decades if not properly removed. To prevent contamination, all expeditions are required to have comprehensive waste management plans, and non-compliance can result in severe penalties. These regulations are in place to protect Antarctica's unique environment, ensuring that it remains as untouched as possible for future generations to study and enjoy. Regulation of tourism. Tourism in Antarctica has grown steadily over the years, with more people eager to witness its unique landscapes and wildlife. However, this increase in visitors brings significant environmental challenges. To mitigate these impacts, strict regulations govern tourism activities in Antarctica. The International Association of Antarctica Tour Operators, or IAATO, collaborates with the Antarctic Treaty System to ensure that tourism is conducted in an environmentally responsible manner. This includes setting limits on the number of tourists allowed on the continent each year and enforcing guidelines on where they can go and what they can do. For example, tourists must avoid disturbing wildlife and stick to designated paths to protect the fragile terrain. Before their trip, all visitors undergo thorough briefings to understand the importance of following these rules. These regulations are vital for preserving Antarctica's delicate ecosystem, allowing future generations to experience this extraordinary part of the world without causing harm to its environment. Preventing unauthorized activities. Antarctica is protected by a series of international agreements that aim to safeguard the continent and its resources. A critical part of these agreements is the prevention of unauthorized activities, such as illegal fishing or unapproved scientific experiments. These activities can have serious consequences for the environment. For instance, illegal fishing can lead to the depletion of fish populations, which in turn disrupts the balance of the entire ecosystem. Similarly, unauthorized scientific research can cause contamination or other unintended environmental damage. To prevent such issues, all activities in Antarctica must receive approval from the appropriate authorities. Strict monitoring is in place to ensure compliance with these regulations, protecting the continent from exploitation and ensuring that all research is conducted ethically and responsibly. These measures are essential for preserving Antarctica's unique environment and ensuring that it remains a place of scientific discovery and natural beauty. Limited infrastructure. Antarctica is one of the most challenging places on Earth to explore due to its extremely limited infrastructure. The continent has a few research stations, but beyond that, it is almost entirely undeveloped. There are no roads, airports, or hospitals. This means that once you are in the remote areas of Antarctica, you are largely on your own. The research stations themselves are isolated, often hundreds or even thousands of miles apart, and can only be reached by specialized vehicles or aircraft designed to operate in the extreme cold. Imagine being in a place where the nearest help is days or even weeks away. If you encounter a problem like equipment failure or a medical emergency, getting help is not only difficult but might be impossible. The absence of infrastructure makes any exploration in Antarctica incredibly dangerous, even for seasoned explorers. They must rely heavily on their own skills, thorough preparation, and the support of a well-equipped team. In this environment, there is no quick rescue option, and you can't simply call for help. Explorers must plan carefully before setting out. They need to carry all necessary supplies, including food, fuel, and even manage waste, because there are no facilities available to provide these essentials. The lack of infrastructure not only increases the risk, but also plays a crucial role in preserving the continent's untouched environment. This isolation helps protect Antarctica from human impact, maintaining its status as one of the last truly wild places on Earth. High cost of exploration. Exploring Antarctica is not only logistically challenging, but also prohibitively expensive. The cost of getting to and operating in this harsh environment is among the highest in the world. Reaching Antarctica requires specialized equipment such as icebreaker ships and aircraft capable of landing on ice. Once there, maintaining a team is incredibly costly. The expenses range from extreme cold weather gear to advanced medical supplies, as well as the fuel needed to keep facilities operational in the freezing temperatures. A typical research expedition to Antarctica can easily cost millions of dollars, depending on its duration and scope. The equipment used, such as all-terrain vehicles designed to navigate the icy landscape, can be as expensive as a luxury car. These high costs also include food, shelter, and communications equipment, all of which must be carefully chosen for their durability and reliability in the extreme conditions of Antarctica. Because of these costs, exploration is mostly limited to government-funded research teams or wealthy private expeditions. For the average person, visiting Antarctica is out of reach. Even those who can afford the trip often find that the logistical challenges outweigh the benefits. The high cost and difficulty of exploring Antarctica ensure that only a few will ever experience this remote continent firsthand. Hazardous wildlife encounters. Antarctica may seem like a barren landscape, but it is home to a variety of wildlife that can pose significant dangers to explorers. Among the most formidable creatures are leopard seals, which are known for their aggressive behavior and powerful jaws. These seals can be extremely dangerous, especially when you're far from medical help. Encounters with these animals can be deadly, showing the risks involved in exploring such a remote region. In addition to leopard seals, orcas, the apex predators of the Antarctic waters, are also a potential threat. These large and intelligent animals hunt in packs, and while they rarely attack humans, their sheer size and power make them a force to be reckoned with. Even seemingly harmless animals like penguins can present dangers. Though penguins are not dangerous themselves, disturbing a penguin colony can lead to significant ecological damage, disrupting breeding patterns and affecting the balance of the ecosystem. The remoteness of Antarctica amplifies the danger of wildlife encounters. There are no nearby hospitals, and medical evacuation can be impossible due to the extreme conditions. To minimize risks, interactions with wildlife are strictly regulated, and explorers must take every precaution to avoid disturbing the animals or putting themselves in harm's way. Solar radiation and UV exposure. One of the hidden dangers of Antarctica is the high level of solar radiation and UV exposure. Due to the thinning of the ozone layer over the continent, ultraviolet radiation levels are much higher than in other parts of the world. This makes spending time outdoors in Antarctica particularly hazardous. Prolonged exposure to the sun can lead to severe sunburn, snow blindness, and an increased risk of skin cancer. The vast ice sheets reflect sunlight, further intensifying the harmful effects of UV radiation. For those exploring Antarctica, proper protection against UV radiation is essential. High-quality UV protective clothing and sunscreen are a must, even during the winter months when the sun's rays are less direct. The danger of UV exposure is not limited to humans. It also threatens the wildlife and ecosystems of Antarctica. Many species in the region are adapted to extreme cold, but they are not equipped to handle increased levels of UV radiation. This can cause disruptions in the food chain, as some species may decline or even disappear due to the harsher conditions. The risk of solar radiation and UV exposure is a significant reason why exploration in Antarctica is carefully regulated. Protecting both the explorers and the fragile environment of the continent is crucial to preserving Antarctica as one of the last untouched places on Earth. Cultural and ethical considerations. One of the most important reasons why Antarctica remains largely untouched is the cultural and ethical considerations surrounding its exploration. The continent is often seen as a global heritage site, a pristine wilderness that should be preserved for future generations. Beyond the legal restrictions, there are broader ethical questions about whether humans should venture into one of the last truly wild places on Earth. Many argue that Antarctica should be left as it is. The ecosystems in Antarctica are incredibly delicate, and even small disturbances can have far-reaching consequences. Unlike other continents, Antarctica has no native human population to advocate for its protection. This places a greater responsibility on the international community to ensure that any activity on the continent is conducted with the utmost care and respect for the environment. The cultural and ethical considerations surrounding Antarctica remind us that not every place on Earth needs to be explored or developed. Sometimes, the best way to appreciate a place is to leave it untouched and undisturbed.